The following program, The Russ Belville Show, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate to the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate any illegal activity and encourage all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers on The Russ Belville Show are their own, and The Russ Belville Show cannot be held legally responsible for their validity or reliability. Viewer discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think that we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Brought to you by the National Cannabis Coalition.
Yeah, I hear you had a question for me.
Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
All right, good day, tokers and tokettes, and welcome. It is Tuesday, July 31st, 2012. And it's got to be Cousin Kenny's birthday. Happy birthday, Cousin Kenny. Cousin Kenny is my twin, who is 6 months older than me and 5 times cooler. And so happy birthday, Cousin Kenny, wherever you may be.
12 shades darker.
Well, that too, but I guess that's true.
And way better hair.
And way better hair. That's true. Aw, and more of it.
Damn good on the drums.
Damn gone it. All right. Happy birthday to Cousin Kenny. Welcome to the show, folks. We're having ourselves a good time this Tuesday here at Rolla J Studios. Let's get you introduced to everyone here in the studio representing the Kingdom of Hawaii and the Ivory Island Hour. We got Wiz Kaliko over here on the camera too.
Hello.
How you doing, Kaliko?
Aloha, everybody. I'm glad to be here.
All right. And you just got us a great booking for a week from today, right?
Yeah, we're stoked about Doug Fine, the author of Too High to Fail. He was just recently on Conan, so we are stoked to have him on the show, and that's next Tuesday. So looking forward to that. Doug Fine, Too High to Fail.
All right, and we'll be getting a copy of that book too, and we'll give you our thoughts on it. Also, over there in the engineer chair, we got Ganja John hanging out.
How's everyone doing today?
You're dressed in the bright orange.
Yeah, I want to be visible.
Definitely, you're not going to miss Ganja John today.
No.
And is that the High Times San Francisco hat?
It is the High Times San
That's pretty
Francisco
cool.
hat. Good call, Russ.
And duck colored at that.
Duck colored at that. That was the reason why I bought it.
Excuse me.
Not so bad.
Those are Oakland A's colors.
They are Oakland A's colors, but they are on a Giants hat, which is weird.
Yeah, I don't like
Very
that.
odd. Over here in the guest chair, we got Brian the Red hanging out. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing okay, Russ.
Good to see you here. Brian is our computer parts recycling efficiency expert today. So,
that one's going home.
Thanks for taking that, Brian. And then hanging out in our virtual studio in Grastoria, we've got our news director, Cannabis Carrie Gallagher. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, guys. What a great summer day today.
It is a great day, and we're continuing Legalization Week this week. We'll tell you all about our guests. We got 2 guests today, but before we do, Carrie's got the latest news headlines in our Cannabis Chronicles. So what's up today?
We have a lot of news today. More U.S. attorney letters, more closures, this time in Washington State. And we have a story of a Texas businessman left devastated by the DEA. Oh, and Russ, it's getting close. August starts tomorrow, so football season can't be too far behind. And I have an update on one of the players that we're keeping tabs on. Which Detroit Lion is it this time? But first up, medical marijuana rights advocates have a date with destiny. We know that date now is October 16th, 2012. Very exciting news, all coming up on today's Cannabis Chronicles.
All right, looking forward to it. Also today at 20 after, we get our daily Toker Tunes. Today is Electric Tuesday, and oh my God, we are going to get so happy and mellow for Electric Tuesday today because PBS Digital Studios has another remix out. We played you the one from Mr. Rogers. We got a new one.
Good.
Bob Ross and his Happy Little Clouds.
Thank you, Russ, for picking out this song.
You betcha.
Yes.
So we are getting it all mellow and cool here at the 20 after.
Happy
then
trees.
at half past, we've got we're continuing continuing legalization week. Speaking of Washington State, we've got Allison Holcomb from the New Approach Washington campaign, the I-502 initiative to legalize marijuana in the Evergreen State. And then at 45 past, we're going out to Missouri with John Payne from Show Me Cannabis Regulation. They are trying a city initiative in Springfield, Missouri that's just a few hundred signatures away from making the ballot. We're going to give them all the attention and help we can. So stick around. Plenty of legalization, plenty of news happening, and some happy little clouds. The Russ Belville Show. We'll be right back.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Support the Russ Belville Show. Text the word Russ to 420-420 and connect with the National Cannabis Coalition. You can also send $10 to the Russ Belville Show right from your smartphone. That's Russ to 420-420. You're listening to Radical Russ on the Russ Belville Show. Remember, friends, there's more to life than marijuana. I just can't remember what it is. Why'd I come in? Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, ganja sacrament, consumer cannabis. The topic of marijuana is heating up the news, and the Russ Belville Show catches you up with today's latest headlines. Now, here's our senior news editor, Cannabis Carey, with the Daily Cannabis Chronicle.
Medical marijuana advocates will finally get their day in federal court. The United States Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit have agreed to hear the oral arguments in the lawsuit Americans for Safe Access versus Drug Enforcement Administration. Americans for Safe Access have been fighting for medical marijuana patients' rights since the group formed in 2002 to help the public learn the therapeutic value of marijuana and to change public policy surrounding it. The lawsuit challenges the federal government's Schedule I classification of marijuana, defining it as something with no medicinal value and dangerous. This historical court case will allow the plaintiffs to have the courts review scientific evidence regarding the therapeutic values of cannabis. Those oral arguments will begin on Tuesday, October 16th at 9:30 a.m. Joe Elford, the chief counsel for the ASA, applauded the decision to hear the case, saying what is at stake is nothing less than our country's scientific integrity and the imminent needs of millions of patients. The case will be heard 10 years after the Coalition to Reschedule Cannabis filed a similar petition in 2002. Many agencies are involved in the process to reclassify controlled substances, but the DEA is the final arbiter on petitions to reclassify them. They hadn't gotten around to dismissing that 2002 case until January of 2011. That gave the ASA a chance to file their lawsuit to force the DEA on the issue. The ASA case has gained even more ground since they filed it over a year ago. Just weeks ago, a group of researchers had a study published in the Open Neurology Journal that found marijuana's Schedule I classification was not tenable and concluded that it was not accurate that cannabis had no medical value or that information on safety was lacking. They found that the classification of marijuana and the political controversy surrounding it were obstacles to medical progress. Not that they needed any more ammunition, the ASA appeals brief charges the federal government has acted arbitrarily and capriciously in its efforts to deny marijuana to millions of patients throughout the U.S. For the last year, the Justice Department has been escalating raids of medical marijuana dispensaries that are clearly within state law. There are dozens of brand new indictments and prosecutions from U.S. attorneys. A positive outcome in this suit would give federal medical marijuana patients a right to a medical necessity defense. The lawsuit claims that the DEA DEA has no, quote, license to apply different criteria to marijuana than to other drugs, ignore critical scientific data, misrepresent social science research, or rely upon unsubstantiated assumptions, as the DEA has done in this case. They are urging the appellate court to require the DEA to analyze the scientific data even-handedly and order a hearing and findings based on this scientific record. We, of course, will be listening intently to their defense, and we'll bring that news to you right here.
Well, of course, if this is going to be determined on a scientific basis, then the court case shouldn't take that long. It's pretty obvious that there are medical benefits to the use of raw plant cannabis in smoked, vaporized, tincture, edible form, whatever form. You cannot deny it. It's just you're just a fool. You just look foolish if you try to deny it. As foolish as our DEA administrator looked when she couldn't tell you it was less harmful than heroin. I mean, the wall is beginning to fall here, and the political pressure is going to come from this happening in the D.C. Court of Appeals. This means the politicos out there, the Hill, all of these Washington insider blogs and Washington Post reporters are going to focus on this case, and they're going to bring this to the executive department. They're going to bring this to the Obama campaign. Why is this still Schedule 1? Why do we try to maintain a lie that there's no recognized medical use in the United States when 17 and what will be 18 with Massachusetts, United States, and District of Columbia, where they're deciding this case, all recognize the medical utility of cannabis? But beware, cannabis reformers, because down this path lies Schedule 2 rescheduling of cannabis, which is just exactly what Big Pharma is waiting for, the license to go right ahead and start deriving all sorts of plant cannabinoids and making all sorts of pharmaceuticals out of them, and thereby gutting the medical marijuana argument. We've got you the medicine that your patients needed. So remember, we do want to have any sort of movement we can have here on this issue, but we can never take our eyes off the prize, and that is there is no legitimate reason for the government, by the use of force, to try to stop people from using marijuana so long as they're not harming others.
3 medical marijuana retail shops in central Washington state have closed their doors shortly after receiving threatening letters about criminal charges and property seizures. The businesses all in the Wenatchee area decided to close their doors after their landlords received letters from Eastern Washington U.S. Attorney Michael Ormsby. That letter, sent just last week to 4 area dispensaries, followed a similar strategy that has successfully closed hundreds of dispensaries in California. One of the dispensary owners, Eric Cooper, had just opened Apple Capital Holistic Care in May, and he said that he probably got spooked easier than he should have, but did not want to face having a criminal record. He said that he did not want to put his landlord in the position of having to evict him or lose his property. Cooper said that they had done everything by the book, and he had a nice, clean operation and regrets having to put 7 employees out of work. Joe Harrington, the first assistant U.S. attorney in Spokane, Washington, said that 4 dispensaries were sent letters, but said the letters were not technically cease and desist orders. Harrington said the letters were sent asking the landlords to take appropriate steps within the next 30 days to make sure their properties were not being used for illegal purposes. He also reminded reporters that trafficking in controlled substances is a violation of federal law, as is knowingly maintaining premises where drugs are being distributed. 2 other dispensaries also closed immediately after receiving the letters, and that 4th dispensary is still open, but they are making plans to close within the next 30 days.
Well, this just highlights once again the disparate enforcement of the law depending on where you are at. Your geography often determines what's going to happen to you. If you look at this map here, Wenatchee, Washington, it's just right there in the center of Washington State, a little bit north of Yakima, Washington, to be the nearest major city, and of course Seattle area over here to the west. Had the dispensary been open over in this Seattle-Tacoma area, most likely the prosecutors there would be leaving it alone. But there in the central Washington area, the people are vulnerable to the law enforcement that doesn't look at the medical marijuana law quite the same. If this doesn't highlight the need to pass legalization and finally get it through the thick skulls of law enforcement that the people don't want this treated as a crime, I don't know what will. We've got to vote yes any chance we get to legalize marijuana.
We've been following the antics of some off-season Detroit Lion players who have been in legal trouble over marijuana. Nick Fairley, the Lions' defensive tackle, had a hearing scheduled this morning in an Alabama municipal court on charges of second-degree marijuana possession. He faces up to a year in jail and a $2,000 fine. The former Auburn player and first-round draft pick was stopped by police April 3rd after residents of a neighborhood called in reports of a black Cadillac Escalade racing through the streets. He was pulled over and charged with having a personal amount of marijuana. Then just 2 months later, Fairley was in trouble with police again. According to Alabama state troopers, that same Escalade driven by Fairley passed them from behind at about 100 miles an hour. They say that Fairley at first did not yield to the police lights and sirens, but when he did come to a stop, police say they charged him with DUI and attempting to elude police. Now, he is set to answer those charges on August 14th, but his marijuana charges today, Fairley was impressing his bosses at practice instead of sitting in front of that judge. His attorney requested more time to review the case, and that was granted. Fairley's lawyer told the judge the player was in an NFL substance abuse program. Now, the new hearing is rescheduled for November 27th, right in the middle of football season, and after his court hearing, he will most likely also face some kind of sanction from the NFL. They're holding their judgment on him until his legal issues on the case have been answered. Reports from training camp say that Fairley looks great on the field, and one of his fellow players, Michael LaShore, will be sitting out the first two games due to his two arrests in a time frame of about 1 month for marijuana possession earlier this year.
Okay, well, I can't defend a guy who is passing cops in his Escalade at 100 miles an hour on the freeway. That's just a certain level of stupidity that is crying out for some sort of punishment, and hopefully something that happens just to him and not to some innocent person who he might wreck into getting out of control there at 100 miles an hour in a large vehicle. So don't have much sympathy for you there, Nick Fairley, on that issue. And I hate it when we get stories like this and marijuana is tied into it somehow, and it then, puts a black eye on those of us who are responsible cannabis users who aren't endangering others in this sort of way. So please, I hope everyone can understand that this guy, it could have been a marijuana, it could have been, anything else, but this guy's just got a responsibility problem. He's got a maturity problem. This is not a marijuana problem.
The owner of a small North Texas business has been devastated by a secret DEA drug war operation that left one of his employees dead and half his business shot up beyond repair. Craig Patty owns a small business that hauls sand using 2 trucks, and without his knowledge, DEA administration employed one of their drivers, Lawrence Chapa, to work undercover, hauling loads of marijuana from the southern border. On one such haul, with more than a dozen law enforcement officers observing the truck, 4 men attempted to hijack the cannabis-loaded truck, shooting the driver Chapa 8 times, killing him immediately. In the confusion of the attack, a Houston police officer shot a Harris County Sheriff's deputy as well. The truck itself was sprayed with bullets to the point of becoming inoperable, but when Patty submitted the damages to his insurance company, he was informed that since the truck was used in a law enforcement activity, they would not cover the damages. Patty is also out the service of that truck in his business, which nearly bankrupted him. Patty also had to pay a special team to clean the blood out of the cab of the truck. With no apologies or money coming from the DEA, Patty has filed papers in court demanding the DEA reimburse him over $133,000 in lost wages and repairs and another $1.3 million for damages to himself and his family. Since the murder, they have lived in fear of retaliation from the cartels over the hijacking gone bad.
Well, this is an object lesson to anybody out there who hears this story that is, well, I don't use drugs, it doesn't mean anything to me. Why do you care about the war on drugs? Gee, God, there's more important things to worry about. How about this guy who's trying to just, run a small business, an average American running a small trucking company here, trying to, feed his family, and without his knowledge, our federal DEA here finds it so important to try to bust somebody who's smuggling weed that without his knowledge, they go and secretly hire his driver to take his business's property, half of his operating business. Guy had 2 trucks. Take one of his trucks, and instead, and then they lied to him too. They lied to this guy and told him the truck, we're taking it to Houston for repairs, right? Instead, they're taking it and making these surreptitious drug runs, working with traffickers here to try to get them busted. The DEA enlisting an average driver who, the driver can't be making that that much money. DEA comes up and says, hey, we'll pay you this much. All you got to do is show up at this place and drive it to some other place. His family's also devastated with him, taking some driver job and then getting shot up by 4 guys trying to hijack the truck because, again, prohibition makes marijuana worth so much that it's worth trying to do these pirate operations in the middle of our freeways in Texas here, trying to take this guy down, while 12 or more than a dozen of these cops watching it happen. They were there, surveilling the truck for the trafficking gig there, for the sting, and then they have to see the driver there get sprayed with bullets and killed. So you got one guy's business that's almost bankrupted here without his knowledge. He can't get any recompense from his insurance company because it was a lawful law enforcement operation. That's the little small print there in the contract. We don't have to reimburse you. DEA is going to drag their feet on it. We got one family who's lost a husband and a father, another husband and father who's almost lost his business. Is this worth it? God.
It's 420 back in Idaho, where Russ and Carrie were born. So we have to go connect with our roots. You know what I mean? Please support these sponsors who support the Russ Belville Show.
The drug war destroys families. It destroys small business. It destroys all that's good about America. Gotta end this. We really need a break. We'll be right back after this.
If he said he swam to China, he would say to South Carolina, then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. Please do not give up your precious liberties. There's nothing wrong with standing up for our constitutional rights, and in fact, it's the only way to honor the Constitution that recognizes our natural rights. Treat law enforcement with respect and respect the Constitution by standing up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, stand up for your rights by repeating, I respectfully invoke all my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak to my attorney, Omar Figueroa. Omar Figueroa has more than a decade of experience in federal and California courts and graduated from Yale University, Stanford Law School, and Trial Lawyers College. Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web at www.omarfigueroa.com.
The Russ Belville Show reminds you to never smoke and drive impaired. Hang out for a while and share.
Cause the day was hard and your work was long and you need a break from all that's wrong. You better look at the clock cause it's 4:19. Time to reach in that pocket for your bag of green and smoke that weed.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show. Everyone knows music and marijuana go together, so let's wind up our 20 after break with the Russ Belville Show's Daily Toker Tunes, the best in pod-safe 420 music from around the web. Today is Electric Tuesday, featuring the latest in electronic dance music and other cutting-edge genres. You can get downloads and more information about all our Daily Toker Tunes by visiting music.radicalruss.com. Now, sit back and enjoy your Daily Toker Tune.
Welcome back, everybody. We get our blood pressure up here sometimes, reporting day after day on the tragedy and injustice that is the American war on certain American citizens using non-pharmaceutical, non-alcoholic, tobacco-free drugs. And you got to do something to relax. And, marijuana is helpful in that respect. But you also have to, relax your mind a little bit. You have to let that stress go. And if there was anybody today who could rescue us from the depths of despair, it's this next man to my side here, Mr. Bob Ross, who sadly is no longer with us, but he was on PBS for years and years and years, painted thousands and thousands of paintings, and he's, of course, known for saying happy little trees and happy little clouds. You grew up watching this guy? Did you see him, Kaliko?
Oh, of course. Yeah. How can you not?
Everybody knows Bob Ross, right?
But something that stuck with me about Bob Ross was his inability to yell at people. He told himself he was never going to yell at someone again after he was a drill sergeant, which is awesome.
And that's something people probably would not expect of Bob Ross.
Yeah, that he was a drill sergeant. Yeah, yes. Amazing. So he went to this life of painting, and he inspired a lot of people to take up art. And I was always just floored at how easy he made it look, right? Because I've tried painting. It's not that easy. It just...
He's definitely one of the guys who've inspired my brother to be kind of the artistic type of person that he is. I remember he's had several of his DVD collections, so I've spent many a day watching Bob Ross and burning a little bit of my own happy trees.
Yeah. Well, we've got, we've been playing a lot of the Symphony of Science songs where they take the various scientists and they auto-tune them to give you some sort of lesson on dinosaurs or star stuff or whatever, evolution, whatever it might be. Most recently, PBS Digital took a lot of old Mr. Rogers clips and put them together in this nice little auto-tuned package. Now, PBS Digital has come out with this one, from Bob Ross. This is entitled Happy Little Clouds from PBS Digital Studios. Bob Ross remixed. Hope you enjoy it.
Hello, I'm Bob Ross, and I'd like to welcome you. First of all, let me take just a moment to thank you for allowing me back into your homes. If this is your first time with us, let me extend a personal invitation for you to drag out your oil paints and paint along with us each week. Let's go over to the canvas here and let's get started. I believe, every day's a good day when you paint. I believe, it'll bring a lot of good thoughts to your heart. I believe, every day's a good day when you paint. I believe, it'll bring a lot of good thoughts to your heart. Let's build a happy little cloud. Let's build some happy little trees. There are no limits here. You start out by believing here. You can almost paint with anything. All you have to do is practice. There are no limits here. You start out by believing here. This is your world. You're the creator. Find freedom on this canvas. Believe that you can do it. Because you can do it. Give it a little touch. Give it a little push. Make love to the canvas. Give it a little touch. Give it a little push. Caress it. Very gentle. Grab it. Lift it. Fluff it. You can go on and on and on. Back and forth. Layer after layer. Let's build a happy little cloud. Let's build some happy little trees. There are no limits here. You start out by believing here. This is your world. You're the creator. Find freedom on this canvas. Believe that you can do it. Because you can do it. Relax. Let it flow. Think like water. Relax. Let it flow. You can go on and on and on. We don't make mistakes. We just have happy accidents. You can do anything that you want to do. Total power. Sing along, have a good time. This is your world. You're the creator. Find freedom on this canvas. Believe that you can do it. Because you can do it. I believe. Every day's a good day when you paint. I believe. It'll bring a lot of good thoughts to your heart. I believe. Every day's a good day when you paint. I believe. It'll bring a lot of good thoughts to your heart.
Hi, this is Dan Michaels. If you're looking for professional voice talent for your commercial or podcast, I'm your man. Visit danmichaelsaudio.com for more information.
I like it like that.
Well, I don't know what you came to do, but what we came to keep the funk alive.
That's right, baby. We're keeping the funk alive right here at Big Daddy Fink's Funky Roller Ring. National Cannabis Radio's home of soul, funk, and disco. So join me, Big Daddy, every Thursday night at 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific at the Funky Roller Ring, where every night is Saturday night.
The Russ Belville Show.
I'm not very good at singing songs, but here's a try.
According to lifelong pot smoker and rocket scientist Carl Sagan, making apple pies from scratch is extremely difficult.
If you wish to make an apple pie from scratch, you must first invent the universe.
Radical Russ and the Rolla J Studios crew will be right back after these messages.
A morning filled with 400 billion suns. The rising of the Milky Way. Cosmos is full beyond measure.
17 states and the District of Columbia have legalized the use of marijuana for medicinal purposes. Over 70% of the American public supports the use of marijuana for medicinal purposes. What does Governor Mitt Romney think of medical marijuana?
So medical marijuana is legal in Colorado. One of our viewers, Bill Ferguson, asked, should marijuana be legalized for medical use?
Aren't there issues of significance that you'd like to talk about?
The medicinal use of marijuana is a significant issue to the millions suffering from cancer, AIDS, and other chronic pain, nausea, spasticity, and seizure disorders.
I think marijuana should not be legal in this country. I believe it's a gateway drug to other drug violations. The use of illegal drugs in this country is leading to terrible consequences in places like Mexico and actually in our own country.
Okay.
I oppose legalization of marijuana.
Five of the last 7 major party candidates to run for president, 3 of the last 7 vice presidential candidates, and the last 3 presidents have all smoked pot. Marijuana, the gateway drug to the White House. This is the Russ Belville Show.
Look, when I was a kid, I inhaled frequently. That was the point.
Remember, Mr. President, you once were just one bust away from being Barry the drug criminal.
Life ain't a box of chocolates gone. That's why people smoke weed and take bumps and drink way too damn much and get drunk and do it all over again. First of the
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana and the next thing you know they got 10 years. They've got mandatory sentences and these judges just say, they throw up their hands and say there's nothing we can do, it's mandatory sentences. We've got to take a look at what we're considering crimes.
When the Reverend Pat Robertson from television's The 700 Club
criminalizing marijuana, criminalizing the possession of a few ounces of pot and that kind of thing. I mean, it's just
makes more sense on the marijuana issue than the president, the Congress, and the Supreme Court.
It's costing us a fortune, and it's ruining young people. Young people go into prisons. They come out. They go in as youths, and they come out as hardened criminals, and it's not a good thing.
You know we're winning.
I have to say that there was one question that was voted on that ranked fairly high, and that was whether legalizing marijuana would improve the economy and job creation. I don't know what this says about the online audience, but the answer is no. I don't think that is a good strategy to grow our economy. So.
About nearly 1 million lives wrecked by a marijuana arrest every year, Mr. President. Politely tell President Obama what you think about legalization by calling the White House at 202-456-1111. marijuana re-legalization is not likely to happen first at the federal level. It's going to happen state by state. We turn now to our 50-state legislatures and assemblies for the Russ Belville Show's Legalization Legislation Update.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Sorry for the delay. Having some trouble getting the phone lines working, but we got it now, and we are joined by Allison Holcomb from New Approach Washington, the campaign to legalize marijuana in Washington State. How you doing, Allison?
I'm doing great, Russ. Thanks.
Hey, we just reported recently on some good news for I-502, a big influx of campaign cash. Can you tell us more about it and how it's going to be used?
Yes, we just deposited $1.25 million from 4 different donors. Peter Lewis of Progressive Insurance Company, a longtime contributor to marijuana law reform efforts and drug policy reform efforts generally. Drug Policy Action, which is the political arm of Drug Policy Alliance, founded and directed by Ethan Nadelman in New York. Rick Steve, a local celebrity travel writer here in Edmonds, Washington, contributed another $250,000, and then the ACLU of Washington to bring us up to a total of $1.25, and that is money that we are going to use to begin an early voter contact and education campaign in August to put the issue of marijuana legalization, taxation, and regulation on the radar of the swing voters that we know that we have to reach before November 6th.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and as far as the campaign goes so far, I erroneously reported a few weeks ago on the polling results trying to compare the 3 different states. Can you give us the latest polling? And apparently it's the best of the 3 legalization states at this point.
Right. Well, of course we have to take all polls with a grain of salt because every poll is, got a little bit different methodology, a little bit different margin of error, and sometimes they even ask different questions. Most recently, polling done by Survey USA that was commissioned by our local NBC affiliate, Kingside TV, showed Initiative 502 had 55% support statewide with only 32% opposition. So that's a 23-point lead. And what was really exciting was the east of the mountains, which is traditionally a little bit more conservative, we were polling at 54% with only 34% opposition, so a 20-point lead there. So we're thrilled to get those numbers.
Yeah, that's really, really good news. And as we begin this campaign, we're going to start to see some of the opponents to this coming out. And in the strangest sort of news that we had to report on this, we heard of a lawsuit being proposed here because apparently you didn't, or the state didn't indicate how much money would be caused or raised or spent, or it seemed really arcane to me. Can you tell us what's going on with that?
Our state Office of Financial Management is the agency that is required under state law to produce a statement of the fiscal impacts of any initiative that's on the ballot for voters to consider. They actually have until August 10th to produce their final report. And what happened in this instance is that the agencies, there are 17 different state agencies that are weighing in on the fiscal note for Initiative 502. They had produced preliminary fiscal notes, and those were available as public records. And apparently one of our opponents wasn't happy with the numbers that were reported and decided to sue, saying that the fiscal note was inadequate and not correctly produced. Now, we're still waiting to get the final note from the Office of Financial Management, but I'm sure that by next week, next Friday when it's due, complete and accurate fiscal note will be published.
Okay, so but there's nothing happening here to suggest that it wasn't on the up and up as far as trying to evaluate what the financial impacts might be.
Well, at least not from my reading of the notes. I mean, what I would say is that probably some opponents would prefer to see numbers that supported their arguments against Initiative 502 more than the fiscal note probably will.
One of these numbers that I do hear bandied about that seemed kind of ludicrous to me is this idea that when I-502 passes, because of a 25% tax at each level of the production chain and distribution chain, there would be $600 ounces in Washington State, which seems kind of ludicrous to me. Where does that even come from? How does this 25% tax work?
Right. So, what I think what happens for some people is that they hear that, well, the 25% tax gets applied at the three different stages in the supply chain. So there can be a grower and then a processor, somebody that would turn marijuana into a usable product, and then finally your retail outlet. And so they take 25 and 25 and 25, and they add that up, and they come up with 75%. What that misses is that, of course, the cost that a wholesaler charges to a retailer is very different from what the retailer charges to the customer. The way that the 25% tax would work, assuming that you actually have three stages in the supply chain, and there's nothing prohibiting a grower from also getting a processor license and collapsing that to two stages of the supply chain. But if you have all three, what really happens is you wind up, after all the tax is added up, plus the retail sales tax is added on, and you get to about a 40% tax, which is certainly a steep sin tax. It's roughly equivalent to what we pay on alcohol here. And as you know, the prices on marijuana right now reflect a very hefty prohibition inflation. So to get to a $600 ounce off of what's currently a $200 ounce, you're talking about significant markup on top of the prohibition inflation that just really isn't going to apply. I suspect that what we're going to see happen is that once marijuana becomes legal in the state of Washington and hopefully in Oregon and hopefully in Colorado, you'll start to see that prohibition inflation decrease, and your sellers are going to absorb that sin tax, if you will, so that prices will, at the worst, stay where they are now, but over time start to decrease as we move away from this prohibition model.
We're speaking with Allison Holcomb, campaign director with New Approach Washington, the I-502 legalization initiative in the state of Washington that would legalize personal possession of an ounce and set up a series of, is not state-run, but state-licensed stores and producers. Is that correct?
That's right. The state will not be involved in growing or selling. They'll simply be issuing the license, as much as anybody that wanted to get a license to operate a bar would have to get a special license for that.
So, it seems to me that when this passes, the federal government's not going to be very happy, and they're going to employ all sorts of tactics and court trials and threats to try to stop this from happening. If they decide to go after the state, that's one thing, but what about these people that are licensed? Is there anything about them getting this license that is going to lead to, say, a paper trail that's going to help a federal prosecutor?
Right now, we see the federal government investigating and prosecuting certain people who are, for example, holding themselves out as medical marijuana providers. But for whatever reason, the federal government believes that they're operating outside of the bounds of the state law, and they investigate them. Some of these medical marijuana providers do have business licenses. Some of them are paying state taxes, and sometimes that information does show up in the investigatory files of the law enforcement agency. But by and large, when the federal government decides to go after you, they're not going to rely on a paper trail. They're actually going to send undercover agents into your shop to buy actual marijuana and build a case that shows that you didn't just get a license to sell marijuana, you actually did decide to go ahead and sell marijuana. So does the fact that you have a license provide some evidence that you are committing a crime? Sure. But the evidence that a federal prosecutor wants to have to go after you is evidence that you're actually selling marijuana, which is not going to be just a paper trail. So my advice for anyone that's afraid about the federal government coming after them is don't get into the marijuana business.
Well, there we go, and like you say, it's kind of the risk that people would be taking now in the medical situation that's going on in Washington. We just reported today on 3 dispensaries in central Washington, the Wenatchee area, that had shut down thanks to these threatening letters from eastern Washington. I don't know if it's the district attorney or U.S. attorney out there, but they got the threatening letters and they've shut down. So how is passage of I-502 going to change, if at all, these folks that are currently doing business in the medical arena?
The most powerful thing that 502 will do for people that are operating as businesses within the medical marijuana arena is to send an incredible political message that says the people of the state of Washington are sick and tired of treating marijuana use by adults as a crime, and we're ready to do something different, and we don't think it's a very good use of federal resources to go after people who are growing and selling marijuana to adults. That political message is probably more powerful than anything that a defense attorney can do for you in court.
Good point. That's what I always say is that first you have to secure the fact that we have a right, and then we can start defending it. It's hard to fight for something when you're a criminal. A lot easier when it's considered to be a right, something that's been upheld by your fellow citizens. Like you said, so far we're seeing polls around the 55% margin. What will we be seeing as far as will we get some campaign ads, maybe some TV spots with Rick Steves? What's coming up?
Well, what we'll do in August is start a conversation with people who are soft supporters and undecideds, and typically those are parents. As you know, women tend not to support marijuana law reform quite as strongly as men do, so we'll be targeting our initial contacts, which will be television ads, broadcast television, cable television, and we'll run the ad online as well for people surfing the internet. That'll essentially try to engage that constituency and talk about, what if we did something different? What could we do differently that might actually be better for our families and our communities than the prohibition model that we're pursuing right now? So we'll run that, and it'll be, a little bit softer than what people might think of as a typical political campaign ad that's just saying, vote yes. This will be trying to engage people in the conversation and trying to get them to take a look at what might be possible.
All right. Well, Allison Holcomb with New Approach Washington, we are so excited that we've got 3 states, a record, 3 states at once voting on marijuana legalization. If anything, that in and of itself sends a message. So how can our listeners from all around the country and all around the world help New Approach Washington, help topple that first domino and get marijuana legalized?
It would be absolutely wonderful if people would go to the website, newapproachwa.org, newapproachwashington.org, like us on Facebook, follow us on tweet, show that we have a strong following around the planet. And if you are so inclined, if you live in the U.S. and would like to make even a low-level donation, $35 gets a field organizer volunteer kit into the hands of one of our volunteers so that they can go out and spread the word about 502 and make sure that voters in the state of Washington are aware of this. And that's something that they can do for all 3 campaigns. Go to Colorado and Oregon and make sure that they have a little bit of money so they can reach out to voters and talk to them about these initiatives.
All right, that sounds great to me. And Allison, is just 3 weeks away till Seattle Hemp Fest. Will we see you there?
Absolutely, can't wait for it.
All right, see you there. Thanks for joining us again.
Thank you, Russ.
It's simply business. It's simply business. It's simply business. You know why they won't let us grow. It's simply business.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisers because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show.
All right, we got more Legalization Week coming up next. John Payne and Miranda Reynolds from Show Me Cannabis Regulation in Springfield, Missouri.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show,
be right back.
Voice of the Marijuana Nation. Brought to you by the National Cannabis Coalition.
It's simply business. It's simply business. It's simply business. You know why they won't let us grow. It's simply business. It's simply business. You know why they won't let us grow. It's simply business.
There was one question that was voted on that ranked fairly high, and that was whether legalizing marijuana would improve the economy and job creation. And I don't know what this says about the online audience, but
activism begins with ACT. The Russ Belville Show features the stories of hardworking grassroots activists working for an end to prohibition in today's activist agenda.
All right, legalization is breaking out all over the country, and we are going now to the state of Missouri, where Show Me Cannabis Regulation has been fighting to make changes in their marijuana laws. We got John Payne on the line. John, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, and Miranda Reynolds, are you there as well? No Miranda? Okay. John, thanks for joining us here on the show.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me, Russ.
All right, and so Show Me Cannabis Regulation, we had reported on Springfield trying to get a marijuana measure on the ballot, needing 600 or so signatures. Can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, so I'm actually down in Springfield now. I've come down to help out for the final push. And I was in the city clerk's office for a large chunk of the afternoon crunching the numbers. So we have about, we still need 684 valid signatures, but they have, there's 1,099 signatures that we have turned in that they have not yet processed. So, whatever we get out of that goes to that 684. And then we have about another 600 already gathered that we have not yet turned in. So, we're fairly confident that we're going to make it. We just need to, we're going to keep collecting, though, just so we have, if our validity rate slips some, we're still going to be able to make it. So we just need every last signature right now.
Now, that's good news. So if people want to get involved and help out with this last bit of signature drive, where do they go for information?
So if they have not yet signed and they're a registered voter in the city of Springfield, they can go sign tomorrow night. There'll be a meeting at the Library Center on South Campbell here in Springfield, where they'll be notarizing the hopefully final petitions, and so they can sign there and get those final signatures in.
Now, as far as this initiative goes, it's just the city of Springfield, and what exactly would the initiative do? What is it stating?
So this initiative is sort of modeled after something that the city of Columbia, Missouri, did about 8 years ago. It is a decriminalization measure, so it's not full-on legalization because you can't really do that at the local level. But it is something that would allow the police to only ticket and ideally impose a suspended imposition of sentence on people that are caught with 35 grams or less of marijuana. And so that, as opposed to, there's about 200 arrests every year in Springfield for small amounts of marijuana. So instead of taking those people to jail, they would at worst get a fine and probably just a suspended imposition of sentence.
Okay, so if you say this is modeled on a similar measure in Columbia, do we have any figures on how passage in Columbia made any changes in these arrest statistics or imprisonment statistics?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the exact figures off the top of my head, but it's dramatic. There's very few arrests in Columbia now, and certainly none under municipal law for simple possession of cannabis. There are still obviously arrests for possession of larger amounts or distribution, but it's pretty much been all the small amounts of marijuana. If they even do anything about it, it's just a suspended imposition of sentence. That has dramatically increased since they passed that law.
Okay, so how are the officials, the law enforcement in the Springfield area reacting to this? Oftentimes they'll say, "Well, this doesn't really make any difference. We don't arrest anybody for pot anyway." What are they saying about this?
I mean, there was a little bit of that line taken, but then there was also one of the law enforcement officers that opposed it used what I call the Mr. Mackey argument, which is a character from South Park who just said, whenever he talked to kids about drugs, said, "Drugs are bad, okay?" And his first line in an interview when asked about this was, "Marijuana is bad." And so, it's not taking into consideration anything about, where our police resources should be going, if it's really appropriate to be spending tax dollars to lock up perfectly peaceful people. Just marijuana is bad, so ergo there should be laws against it.
Yeah, exactly. The drugs are bad argument. We hear that a lot. The what about the children argument. So let's take a bigger look now, John, statewide in Missouri. Now, do you have the statewide initiative system for the state of Missouri? Is that one of the states that has it?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So
and we actually, we try to get a legalization and regulation measure, much like what Colorado is doing, Colorado and Washington, on the ballot this year. We did not get enough signatures for that. We got, about almost 70,000, but that wasn't quite enough. So we're now concentrating on some local efforts and looking towards the future, 2014 or 2016, to get that statewide measure passed.
How many signatures you need to get on the ballot statewide in a state like Missouri?
It is about 140,000 right now, but because of this is based, Missouri's weird. Most states it's a flat number for the whole state. Missouri has an apportionment requirement, so you have to get a certain amount in 2/3 of the congressional district.
Yeah.
And because of the new census, we've lost a district, so there's going to be new figures at the end of this year.
Yeah. Okay. So, but the target, you'll know what target you'll need to meet, and for either 2014 or 2016, have something to go. And now, are you? Did I miss it? Did you say that this was a decrim argument for the statewide initiative, or a medical argument? What were you going with for statewide in those years?
It was what we were pursuing this year was a full legalization or regulation. Treat it like alcohol. That's what we were going for this year.
Do you plan on doing that again for 2014, 2016, or maybe trying something that, maybe a medical thing that might get more traction in Missouri?
I think we're pretty committed to the idea that it's, we should go for the full legalization and regulation of cannabis.
Excellent.
Now, if I don't know if we want to put the sort of resources that it would take to pass a medical bill into that. Now, if at the local level we want to pursue, work on, pushing for medical or decrim things in smaller, cities, or also pursuing, lobbying the legislature to implement better laws. That's one thing, but these initiatives are very costly, so we want to make sure we have the biggest impact that we can if we're going to go for the process of having to get all those signatures.
Now, for the Springfield, assuming that that the signatures you've turned in and that are waiting to turn in and that you'll gather in these last few days are going to get you on the ballot, do you have any idea here, any polling, any sort of information to tell us how the vote might go for Springfield?
That's really tough to say because local level polling is hard to do. It's hard to be scientific when you have such a small pool to draw from. But when this passed in 2004 in Columbia, it passed by about a 60-40 margin. And now Columbia is, definitely a more liberal city than Springfield, but Springfield is also home to the second largest university in the state of Missouri, which is Missouri State. And if you look at how the cities vote, not in partisan elections, but on ballot initiatives, they actually vote in very similar ways. So, I think that we can actually somewhat extrapolate from what happened in Columbia, and I don't think it would be maybe quite that sort of margin, the 20-point margin like they saw in Columbia, but I think it's definitely passable here in Springfield.
All right, so let's give the folks once again any website information they might need, Facebook or stuff like that, if they want to help contribute to this effort and get involved in these last few days to get this on the ballot.
So the website would be showmecannabis.com, and then if you want to donate, just hit /donate. And then the Facebook page is Show Me Cannabis Regulation. I've been putting updates on there about the measure in Springfield and where people can go. And finally, like I said, if they're living in Springfield and are registered to vote there but haven't got to sign a petition, they should come out to the Library Center on South Campbell tomorrow night at 7 o'clock and sign the petition.
All right. Thank you so much. John Payne, Show Me Cannabis Regulation, show-mecannabis.org out there on the internet. Get involved. We can change this everywhere. Everybody just needs to get involved with this. And there's more support amongst your neighbors and your friends out there than you think there is. We've just been taught to be scared of expressing ourselves on this issue. Hey, John, thanks so much for joining us here. We'll have you back on again. Give us an update, and we'll see how things are going next week, okay?
All right, thank you, Russ. Just one last thing. It's showmecannabis.com, not .org.
.com. Thank you. Show-mecannabis.com. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Stick around. Hour 2 is next.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
We're taking your calls next at 971-533-7111 for Ganja John, Wiz Khaliqa, Brian the Red, and Cannabis Carry. I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.